Dramatic UFO Healing Cases Part 3. Case Study 6. Alberto Fernandez Part 2. Healing of large right lung mass deemed likely to be malignant. Interview by Joseph Burkes, M.D. According to the Fernandezes, in 2005 another high strangeness event occurred when he visited a prominent Miami physician, Dr. Ralph G. Nader. Mr. Fernandez has a history of prostate cancer and a routine follow-up chest X-ray was done at this appointment. After looking at the films, his doctor notified Mr. Fernandez that he had some very bad news. The X-ray showed a baseball-sized mass in his right lung that was very likely cancer. According to Mr. Fernandez, his physician insisted that he be immediately admitted to Mount Sinai Medical Center for evaluation and treatment. He was told not to go home and that his wife should meet him at a lung specialist's office. That Dr. Nader was referring Alberto to the pulmonologist ordered another chest X-ray. Mrs. Fernandez accompanied her husband into the X-ray department. There a curtain separated her from him as she waited a short distance away for the technician to do the repeat study. Alberto stated that suddenly his entire body started vibrating. He said that he was shaking as if he had severe chills. There was no loss of consciousness. He denied being in pain. According to his wife, he started shouting to her repeatedly in Spanish, "They are here. They are here, ND then, they cured me." Mrs. Fernandez stated that as she rushed towards her husband, she noticed that the curtain was moving in a most bizarre manner. A rhythmic, orderly, perfect sine wave pattern moved across its surface as if her husband located behind the curtain had been enveloped in some kind of energy field. The patient stated that although he remembered his violent shaking, he did not recall crying out to his wife. Mrs. Fernandez reported that she observed the shaking of his body. The entire episode lasted less than a minute. The test was then done, and they brought the X-rays to the pulmonologist for review. When the specialist looked at the films, he became angry, saying that the X-rays were perfectly normal, and that he could not understand why the patient had been sent to his office to waste his time. Dr. Nader was reportedly shocked when he found out that the repeat chest X-ray showed no evidence of the right lung mass. Commentary. Joseph Burkes, M.D. The question arises, is there a connection between where a healing takes place and the type of illness that is addressed by non-human intelligences? In Mr. Fernandez's traumatic eye injury, only one body part was treated, and the healing reportedly took place in his bedroom. It is important to note that the doctor told him some permanent impairment of his vision was likely. Nevertheless, the next morning his vision was reportedly perfectly normal. In addition, he never developed post-traumatic glaucoma that is often seen in such cases. Obviously, the current level of medical science has no explanation for how these amazing cures are accomplished so quickly. Under ordinary circumstances, a minimum of several weeks should be required for healing. Yet the Fernandezes reported that he was fully recovered the morning after his encounter with a green laser. The lung mass seen in the X-ray ordered by Dr. Nader was described as being approximately the size of baseball, about 3 inches in diameter. Lung nodules are abnormalities in chest films of 3 centimeters in size, about 1.2 inches or less, and are far less likely to be malignant than lung masses which are defined as being larger than 3 centimeters across. In general, the larger the abnormality is, the more likely it will be malignant. Although bacterial and fungal infections can cause lung masses, patients with these illnesses are usually symptomatic at time of diagnosis, especially if on X-ray the abnormality is the size of a baseball. Mr. Fernandez did not have symptoms indicating infection. There was no history of fevers or coughing up phlegm or blood, and the high probability that he had cancer prompted his physician to order an immediate workup. Whether this large mass was caused by cancer or infection, its rapid disappearance is truly astonishing. For discussion purposes, I feel obliged to make some radical speculations in an attempt to understand what might be the technological challenges involved in such amazing cures. From these bizarre cases, it appears that non-human intelligence has a technology that carries out extensive tissue repairs very rapidly. One can posit that the same rules of time and space in our plane of existence might not apply to non-human intelligence. This is the opinion of the prominent scientist and contact researcher Dr. Jacques Vallée, who has observed that the intelligence behind the phenomenon doesn't behave like visitors from other planets, but rather more like visitors from another dimension. Perhaps contact experiencers are engulfed in some kind field, or they are taken to a place where time elapses far more rapidly than in our dimensional plane. Once the prolonged treatment is completed, then the experiencer is returned to our dimensional plane where presumably time passes more slowly. This mechanism might explain how Alberto's lung mass apparently was cured instantaneously while in the X-ray suite. This speculative theme will be further discussed in the concluding remarks of this article. Preston Dennett. Fernandez's case of an eye healing provides an extraordinary example of medical healing from non-human intelligence. Both the injury of the eye and its repair were verified by the witness and his wife, and by an amazed doctor. Fernandez, with his career in military and law enforcement, is an outstanding witness. The description given by Fernandez of his eye healing is reminiscent of other cases. The use of lasers like lights seems to be pretty much standard in healing cases. Interestingly, today we can cure detached retina with laser therapy. Fernandez's healing shows that the ETs and humans are using similar methods. Fernandez, like many other UAP-related contact experiencers, reports having multiple healing events. His second healing event occurred in a hospital room. While this may sound unusual, my own research found that 9% of known CE healing cases took place in hospital rooms. Again, the healing was verified not only by his wife, a PhD psychologist, but by X-rays, leaving an upset and confused doctor. In most cases, witnesses do not tell their doctors about their encounters. The extraordinary sine wave pattern witnessed by Mrs. Fernandez is compelling. Could it be that some strange beam of energy was causing this pattern? In any event, it appears that Mrs. Fernandez witnessed the healing take place, or very nearly so. The question remains, why was Fernandez healed? It appears that his cooperation with the ETs in their alleged attempts to replenish the genetics of their race may be a factor. It's a simple conclusion that the ETs are particularly interested in healing people who are important to them. While not always the case, NHI medical healing events are far more common among those who exhibit a lifelong history of extensive contact. Herein may lie the answer as to who is healed and why. It is interesting to note that Alberto and his wife Rebecca have visited with contactee Sixto Paz Wells on multiple occasions and have had many up-close UAP contact sightings and contact with NHI during these trips to Peru and Chile. Fernandez describes entering a Zendra, or energetic portal. There is another account of a CE healing which comes from a gentleman who received a healing to his swollen legs after visiting with Wells and going through a Zendra experience. Post from user Contact Underground at Reddit.